The volume and intensity really scared me. I looked around, and I tried to find out what was the source of the noises. At first, I thought maybe it was bears. They were pretty common here, but I checked on the way, and I hadn't seen any signs that they were in the area. I was sitting in my blind, and I could hear all different kinds of noises around me. It wasn't the normal noises that you would hear in the forest. Something about them were different, and they started to get closer. I heard tree limbs cracking, and the brush was breaking. The sounds of the limbs sounded like they were huge. I knew that something big was coming from the other side of the clear-cut where I was watching for deer, and it was definitely coming in my direction. I noticed that the normal sounds went in the opposite direction. They were clearly very aware of their environment and any potential threats. They had an amazing sense of awareness. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the brush and vines in the woods. The silence that followed was eerie. It was like they fell through a portal and they had vanished without a trace. No sound, no movement, they just disappeared. I was stunned, and I sat there in silence, afraid that they might come back. I remember a few of my neighbors in the area had said that they had heard similar noises. They mentioned hearing these strange hoots and whistles, loud yells, and screaming that sounded like those of grown men. I waited for about an hour, and they never came back.
Yeah, I cannot tell the difference.
Clear as day.
They look pretty identical.
This one right here is the refurbished one.
This is the new one.
This device is the new one. So I got it ready.
Explore pre-owned, new and vintage watches from 20,000 sellers, all in one place. Chrono 24 watches are backed by our authenticity guarantee and buyer protection. It's the smoothest and safest way to buy a luxury watch.
It seemed like it didn't care that we were there or that we had seen it. There was no reaction from the creature as our truck got closer, which to me indicates that it's used to hearing and seeing vehicles and humans, and it just didn't really care. The next day, me and my family went back to the same area and started to look for tracks. The only place they would have shown up was when it went off the road and onto the shoulder, but the grass was too thick there, and there was no way to see if there was any tracks. They searched the other side of the road, and they did find a broken limb hanging from a large cedar tree. The broken limb had a fresh aroma of fresh cedar, which meant it had to have been broken pretty recently. The more we thought about it, the more we were able to start connecting. I was wearing light tan slacks and my shiniest and best shoes, and I wasn't really dressed or prepared for being lost in this forest. I looked all around and decided to just go back the way I had gone in. I had gotten off the trail a little bit when I was trying to follow where the screams were coming from, but I had a pretty good sense of direction, and I thought that I would eventually find my way. I wasn't prone to nervousness or panicking, so I told myself it would be alright. I had been running for quite a while because I thought a woman was in trouble or otherwise being attacked, and as a man, I wasn't about to let that slide. I was a hard-headed 17-year-old boy, and I realized how much two short and wide people doing this made me chuckle to myself. It wasn't meant to be mean, but I thought it was cute, I guess, because it looked like from the distance that it was two children making up their own nonsense language and trying to steal some apples from a farmer. It reminded me of me and my siblings growing up, and something about the scene was very endearing to me. I guess they heard me chuckling because both figures stopped and started looking all around. I ducked behind a tree and I tried to blend in so they wouldn't see me. I thought maybe they were hungry and I didn't want to scare them off or make them think I was someone who was trying to get them in trouble. They were almost whispering in the chatter noises at that point, and that's when I had distrust. I didn't move. It opened its mouth and let out a very loud scream, which sounded like a woman screaming for her life. It was only then did I understand that it had been this creature all along that had been screaming like that, but it sounded to my human ears as the sound of a woman. Suddenly I heard the chattering next to the beast in front of me, and I knew that the little ones, who were still invisible, had come to the side of this, their mother, and they were communicating with her or one another again. They sounded excited. I know I'm assigning all of these different human emotions to these animals, but there was just something about it that I knew that I was thinking and feeling to be true. The larger one turned around 2 p.m. when I passed and waved to my neighbor, letting her know I'd be back shortly. The rangers in the area always reminded residents to be mindful of their safety and surroundings while exploring the woods. Taking some form of protection while hiking was always emphasized, although I must admit that I didn't always pay too much attention to that rule. I had always assumed that the forest held no hidden dangers. The trail leading into the forest was well maintained and pretty wide. About a mile into my hike, I reached the first field, a spot we called the feed spot. This area was a favorite grazing spot for little animals and deer. Picnickers often came out here just to watch the wildlife. This day I noticed that there were... My dad and I walked slowly down a steep, rocky trail as it went in the direction of a distant lake. It was October, and the temperature was warm. But the wide variance of brilliant leaf colors left no doubt that fall was into its last hurrah. The nights were already dipping below freezing, and the skies were filled with geese starting to fly south. This would likely be our last hike to visit our family's long-protected secret canyon hideout before winter came and enveloped the entire canyon and this hidden retreat of the mysterious. The hair of these creatures gradually lengthened throughout the year, and by the time the snow came, the animals looked like huge, shaggy gorillas. Then, after the first major snowstorm each fall, they would be seen gathering roots and animals that they had killed. The story goes that once, when Great-Granddad saw a large animal carrying one of his freshly killed calves on his shoulder, he grabbed his rifle and caught up to the animal and shot it. And then, Grandfather brought the calf home and fed it to the family. Father said that the following spring, his brother found the dried and withered carcasses of 4 Sasquatch that had obviously died of starvation. The skin and bone carcasses were a mute testament to the fact that the poacher animal was merely only trying to feed its family. I was able to return to the area and hike some more. I took the same path, heading towards the creek. Only the typical animals and birds rode that day, and the creature was nowhere to be found. I have never seen anything like it before or since. I joined the military right out of high school before I had even turned 18, and wanted to get out and see the world and get out of Indiana. I did my basic training at Fort Benning, like all infantrymen, and was stationed at Fort Drum in New York. In 2004, the unit deployed to Iraq, and we spent a year operating in and outside of Baghdad. So the next morning, I meet up at the brigade headquarters and met the rest of the guys who got picked from the different units to be part of the detail. It was all infantry guys and 1 medic. The lieutenant had us all load up in a truck, and we headed out to one of the ranges, which turns out to be one of the furthest ranges on the entire installation. It's like a 30 to 40 minute drive out there from main post, and gets to be pretty much in the middle of nowhere. They use those ranges for a lot of different types of training, and most of it is combat related stuff. From one tree line to the other. They had made jokes with each other that they had just seen a Bigfoot, and that they should have shot it. The CEO contacted Range Control and told them that they had witnessed what was at first believed to be a bear, but was unusual in size, gait, and appearance. The CEO was asked by the Range Control officer to make a written statement, which was later passed on to the 10th Mountain headquarters. Apparently, whenever something like this is cited, Range Control is supposed to... The platoon sergeant of the group was a cool guy, and seemed to just take the whole thing in stride, and kind of just take it as a joke in a way. He was making Bigfoot jokes, not around the lieutenant or any of the government people. We had a few more briefings like that in the following weeks, and a couple more training days, just to get used to working with each other as a platoon. They seemed to want us to get used to the idea that we could very well be interacting with some kind of unknown creature. Never felt right said it in any of those briefings. Even after a year long of fighting in Iraq, and I still loved that stuff. I was enjoying myself, even when we'd stop for 20 or 30 minutes, and the government people would do whatever it was that they were doing, picking up samples or tracking. The first night went on like this until morning, around 8:45 or so. We made it back to the Range Control building, tired and worn out, and didn't seem to find anything too interesting. Everyone was just ready to crash and try again, and there were maybe 6 to 10 shots in rapid succession total, if that. Our nerves and adrenaline were on edge, and I just remembered looking back and forth to the other couple guys in the back, and just sort of shrugging and wondering what had just happened up there. After some time, our PSG finally comes back and says to us something along the lines of, "You're not going to believe it. They just shot and killed something big up there, something not human." I still wasn't sure what he was talking about, and I asked him pretty much that.
All right. Tuesday, folks. Did my dumbbell inclines. Still trying to come back to full health or full strength or whatever from, I guess, a little strain. I'm just guessing that's what it is. I don't know. That's got to be it. Got to be what it is. But just did some numbered sets. Started off with lightweight with the highest amount of sets. I did the 35-pound dumbbells. We did 4 sets of 20. I moved up to 50-pound dumbbells. We did 4 sets of 15. Then I went up to the 60-pound dumbbells. We did 4 sets of 12. And I finished it off with with some barbell sets, 135, 4 sets of 10. And then I don't know, man. If it's just me, sometimes I feel if I ain't straining, about to pass out or breathing hard, that I ain't got no good work, Now that was a lot of sets, a lot of reps, man. I know I was pumping blood through my shit, I guess because I'm just not exhausted, at this point, like I'm used to. So makes you feel kind of like you ain't done shit, but clearly I did. You just saw it. I remember doing it. I know I did. I did something. I think I'm just more so used to those sets to failure, man. Taking it out of me, and just really being tired, really feeling that I done did something. But when you got a little injury or a tweak or whatever, you got to back off from it, or I think you have to back off from it, or it ain't gonna heal. It ain't gonna come back, to 100%. That's my opinion. I'm not no fucking sports medicine doctor or no shit like that. It's just from experience, really kind of common sense. But anyways, we still come out here. We got it done. February the 8th. Probably got about 2.5, 3 weeks left before we set foot on Misery Road. Start trimming the fat, So I'm just gonna try to get as much, work as diligently as I can between now and then, build as much muscle as I can, whatever. While I can eat like this, eat a lot, and all that shit. Because on the diet that I'm gonna do, you don't hardly eat nothing, but whatever. But I don't want to be rambling for too long out here. It's Thursday, tomorrow's Friday. It's always a good thing. I'll come back out here tomorrow and do some shoulders. And I'll see y'all then, man. Y'all take it easy.